this video, we take a look at task number 3, which is the use of random numbers and loops. Now, the ability to create random numbers easily and efficiently is something that Swift allows you to do, and there's a lot of different uses of random numbers. For example, if you were to create a math game with numbers, for example, that focus on addition, you can easily generate these random numbers for you. Other examples include quiz or picking winning numbers from a lottery. All of these things are possible with random numbers, and there's also many other examples of where you can use random numbers. The process to generate random numbers in Swift is quite easy, and what we're going to do is we're going to just copy this code here, and we're going to just take out these line numbers and brackets. So the first line here, the first part of this is where we declare a constant called random number. Okay, and if you recall, a constant is a value which doesn't change throughout the execution of your program, as opposed to a variable which can change. Now, let me give you an example of how this is practically. In one of the examples, we looked at score. Okay, so if there's a game and you want to increment the score by 1 every time the question is correct, then a variable will allow you to do this. Declaring score as a variable will allow you to do this, because then you can say score plus equals 1, which is essentially saying add 1 to the score. If we were to do this as a constant, then it wouldn't work. It would give us an error, and you would not be able to add any value to a constant that is being declared as a constant. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, why not declare everything as a variable then? Well, efficiency is the key here, right? It's more efficient to create a constant than it is to create a variable. It's less taxing on the resources of the phone, and it's more effective as far as memory management is concerned, and there's other factors as well. But really, all you need to understand is it's more efficient for the computer or Swift to use constants than it is to use variables. Okay, so when we get to using Xcode, you'll see whenever you create a variable, and if you don't change it anywhere within your code, Xcode will remind you of the fact that maybe you should consider using it as a constant. So that's what the first part of this statement does. It creates a random number, and it's a constant. And the next part is quite a straightforward statement, really. What we're saying here is randomize an integer between 0 and 10, including 10. So remember that there are 11 variations here, including 0. Okay, 0 to 10 is 11 variations, and you can count for yourself if you want to verify that. The next part here is we're printing off a string. Now, we know it's a string because, first of all, we're using a print statement. Okay, and the second reason why we know this is the quotations here. Quotations here indicate that this is a string. Now, this string will print out a string of text, but in the middle here we have a value that's going to be added. Okay, and this value is going to be this random number. Whatever the random number is, it's going to be added into the string. This is called string interpolation, and I have explained it here. You can see. Okay, so it's going to add the value from whatever value is being generated for this random number constant is going to add it to the string. And if we run this, you should be able to see a string output with an actual number. And if we run it again, okay. Now, you see here that I have to click on run every single time I want to generate a random number. Okay. What if we wanted to generate multiple random numbers, for example, as part of simulating the rolling of a dice, right? When you roll a dice, you get a number, and then you roll it again and you get another number, and then you roll it again and you get another number. Now, one thing about these numbers you have to understand is um, sometimes you may get duplicates. And the reason why is because the range of numbers that you are using in a dice, 1 to 6, is quite a small range. If you were to extend that range to 1 to 100, 1 to 1000, then there will be a less likelihood of those numbers being duplicated. Okay, so that's something just to bear in mind. Okay, next thing we need to move on to is the for in loop. This is also referred to as a for each loop, or just simply a for loop. And a for loop allows you to iterate over or repeat something a certain number of times. Remember, iteration is also referred to as repeating. So again, the example for using a for loop is quite um, straightforward to understand. So let's just copy and paste this in from the example, and let's just do this. Okay, so what we have at the start here is a for loop which indicates for number in 1 to 5. Okay, for number in 1 to 5. Now you may see this for loops as written like for n in 1 to 5 or for I in 1 to 5, and these are all correct. These are all correct. It's a short way of writing a for loop, but I just like to indicate quite clearly what this value is, um, and you should also do the same. Okay, this can be any. You can define this as anything, right? Let's just say if you're iterating over a number of items in a shopping list, maybe that would be for item, right? But you can define that. You can define that in any way you want. It's just quite clear for me to indicate this as for number. Now, number in this situation, the value of number is going to be the actual iteration that we are currently on. Okay, and it will all make sense as I explain this. So what will happen is it will get to this line first, and it's the first iteration. Right? It's the first iteration, and the number is going to be set to 1. Then as soon as number has been set to 1, it's going to print out the statement. It's going to say print, this is iteration, and then 1. Then it's going to exit the for loop, and then it's going to go back in again. This time number is set to 2. It's going to print, this is iteration number 2, then exit, and then it's going to go again, and so on and so forth until it gets to the last iteration, and then it will stop. Okay, if we run this now, you'll see that it's repeated that print statement 5 times. This is known as the body of the for loop. Okay, between whatever you have between the brackets is known as the body of the for loop. Okay, so just bear that in mind. The body of the for loop is essentially everything in between the brackets. Your reading of this should be as follows. The way to understand it is as follows. For every number in 1 to 5, do something. Okay, for every number in 1 to 5, do something, and that something is essentially this print statement. Your instructions for this task are as follows. You need to combine the requirements of task A and task B as far as this task is concerned, this assignment is concerned. Within your coding portfolio, remember that the first part, task A, task 3A, focuses just on this randomization, okay? And you have to just create something similar to this, which gives you a random number between the values, the lowest value of a dice and the highest value of a dice, and you should know what those values are. Okay, and then maybe your print statement, you can modify it to indicate the rolling of a dice. That would be for task 3A. For task 3B, you need to create a for loop which includes the randomization that will simulate the rolling of a dice. So maybe 6 rolls of the dice. Okay. So when you run your program, this is the kind of output you should have. Just as we have the iterations here, it should say dice roll number 1 is set to 4. Dice roll number 2 is 5, 3 is 6, 4 is 4, and 5 is 2. These numbers 1 to 5, remember, are the actual iteration. Okay, so iteration number 1, iteration number 2, 3, 4, 5. And these values here, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 2, are the random numbers that have been generated for each dice roll. I'm going to give you a hint now. Okay, I'm going to give you a hint, and I would like you to remember this when you're writing your code. The entire code for this task needs to be in the body of a for loop. The entire code for this task needs to be in the body of a for loop, and really the number of the lines of code that you need are probably 3 to 4. 3 to 4 lines of code will suffice for this task. Okay, and everything will be within the body of the for loop. The pseudocode for this is quite simple. First of all, you declare a for loop which iterates from 1 to 6. Then you declare a constant which holds a random number between 1 and 6. Okay, the for loop is essentially the number of iterations, and the constant here is the actual dice values. And then we need to write a print statement for every roll indicating dice roll number, and then whatever the iteration value is, and then whatever the random number is, similar to this example here. Okay, so I hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing what you produce.